Search and rescue operations are continuing in Turkey following Monday's earthquakes. South African NGO Gift of the Givers is there today with several other international teams. Newzroom Afrika's Ahmed Kajee joins us now from that disaster area. Ahmed, thank you for making time for us. How have the rescue efforts been going so far?
Thank you very much, Clement. As we're making our way through the outskirts of Hatay into the main city, the rescue operations have been continuing. I had spoken to our colleague Erin earlier on, Erin Bates. At that point in time, there was a body which was being recovered, a P4. Which had been recovered. The teams were carrying out their final excavations as well. There were both local teams, the equivalent of your local police, community policing forums, the equivalent in those particular communities. So on that front, the team over here from Oman, as well as the Gift of the Givers and Search and Rescue had went through to render their assistance. And once that operation had more or less concluded, we then made our way through the city as well, where there is utter devastation. Unfortunately, I'm hoping that you will be able to maybe not see the visuals now, but perhaps a bit later on. Houses, buildings, commercial buildings as well, completely razed to the ground. As we had mentioned earlier, that in cases such as this one, the building has two types of collapses, or at least quite a few, but the two main ones which we have been seeing is a major collapse, which more or less just seeing the building either collapsing to the left, to the right, forwards, or backwards, and then a pancake collapse, which is the top floor collapsing in on the one below it as well. The great thing, or perhaps the less worrying about that, is with situations such as that one, you have little voids between each floor, and that's where survivors can at times be stuck inside and can maybe have a better chance of survival. The downside to that is many people who are in perhaps the first, second, third or fourth floors would have all of that weight from the building crushing down onto them, and that's where you also would then have the mass casualties. And obviously with us already sitting in that 25,000 plus casualties between Turkey and Syria, one can only assume that given the devastation which we are seeing, that number would probably increase as well. In terms of what we are going through, this would be a great chance to bring in Mr. Chetty. He is one of the team leaders over here from Gift of the Givers and the Search and Rescue team. Mr. Chetty, thanks very much for your time today. We are seeing utter devastation over here so far. Do you think it's too late now to find survivors?
At this point in time, it's a bit difficult to make that decision. I think we're just going on the ears of the community around there, and what they're doing with the Interact team is trying to get rescue teams to coordinate more properly. They're setting out the sections where we can actually make assistance and render assistance with the canine dogs that we have with us and the Oman team. And I think it's difficult because we're trying to maneuver through traffic, roads that are gone, and it's taking 2-3 hours to get to a site to actually do an assessment and see if we can help the community members. Whether or not it's too late to find survivors, it's difficult to say right now, but we're hoping that we can make a difference, and hopefully the team that we have with the Oman team can help wherever we can at this point in time.
I mean, with us embedding with the Oman team, how important is that international collaboration between NGOs, different search and rescue teams from different countries?
I think it's phenomenal that we can actually see, I think it's close to 117,000 currently the rescue teams on the ground is actually trying to, personnel from the rescue teams is trying to help. And I think the collaboration between us and Oman is great because we have expertise on our side and they have expertise on their side, and obviously with our dogs assisting them for initial assessment is actually what we need, and I think it's benefiting them and us as well to make that difference. Yeah.
I mean, just earlier on, about 2 hours or so ago, we came across a building where, unfortunately, we had a P4 deceased individual. What role did the K9 unit play in that?
Okay, so we just wanted to confirm, because the building was so unstable, the K9 played a role in terms of confirming where we'd locate a victim. And I think the dogs that we used actually did confirm there were people that the community was saying that they were lying there. So our dogs went in and obviously tried to locate the patient and pinpointed exactly where the victims would be. So it played a big role that they could isolate an area where the victims were lying.
I mean, we're seeing the visuals going through to our viewers. What does a building like that entail? What exactly would normally have taken place, and do you think there is a chance of survival?
At this point in time, a building like that, no, it's basically a pancake collapse, and I would obviously, with the years of experience and my gut is that we wouldn't have anybody surviving that. The pancake situation is basically flat to a first floor level, and I don't think we'd find anybody.
Dr. Shetty, thanks very much for your time. I'm sure we'll be in touch with you throughout the operations as well. And Clement, as you see, the members of the emergency services are trying to navigate their way through severe amounts of traffic. They just passed us right now, and this is a scene which you normally would find at least every 10 to 15 minutes or so. Emergency services, ambulances trying to make their way through the city to get through to areas where the emergency care is needed. If a survivor is found, it could be, minutes it comes down to minutes and seconds for them to continue their survival and to get the medical attention that they do need. If someone had to be found as a survivor, it would have been at least 5 days without having any food or water since that devastating earthquake on Monday morning around 4:17 a.m. rather. And the team will continue its efforts to ensure that in some way or form there can be some relief, or at least some closure for those who are still waiting for their family members to perhaps not be rescued, but hopefully to an extent to get the closure and have their bodies recovered as well. Clement.
Has the weather been improving there, Ahmed? We heard a couple of days ago that the cold temperatures have been hampering the rescue efforts.
Yes, so thankfully for rescue teams, the heavy rain and the snowfall has stopped in this particular region, in the Hatay region, which has made it a bit more possible for rescue efforts not just go on from sunrise, but also to go out well into the evening from the local communities, as well as the relief workers and the rescue workers who are coming into play as well. So in this particular region, the warm weather, well, not warm rather, but rather the sunny weather is helping as well. With the absence of rain, more often than not, the work is a lot easier to get through as well. It is, though, exceptionally cold. The maximum temperatures we are seeing is about 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Down into the evening, around 2 or 3 a.m., it is probably around -2, -3 degrees Celsius. So ranging between that -3 and 5 degrees is, really, it makes it really difficult for the rescue workers to carry out their operations. They also need to stay warm. But that just puts into perspective the difficulties which those who have no homes left, the residents whose homes were destroyed, and the people who are stuck in those buildings with cold concrete on top of them, how they would have survived over the last 5.5 days or so, and whether they actually will be able to come out alive. And unfortunately, if they happen to lose their lives between the period of Monday until now, the difficulty and the pain they would have had to go through, the cold weather, the hunger, and everything else in between, that must be exceptionally difficult for everyone here on the ground. The rescue teams are trying their best to get as much as possible done to make sure that they can at least try finding some survivors, try finding some sort of bodies at least to give the members of their families some sort of closure. But as you see in front of you, it's exceptionally devastating, the impact on all the infrastructure over here. And as some of the officials over here and some of the teams over here have been saying, the mountains are as beautiful as the devastation is unfortunate and destructive. And just that compromise, just the contrast over there of what you're seeing, that almost, these snow-kissed mountains is just at the bottom of it all. Just seeing all of this devastation is going to take decades for this particular government, for these communities, for the millions who are going to be affected, to get some sort of recovery from what we have seen over the last week, and those devastating earthquakes and the aftershocks which have come through over there. We actually had an aftershock last night just as we were heading to bed as well. Those are continuing, and this just means the structural integrity of these buildings will continue to be compromised. Clement.
I know, Ahmed, really, really shocking scenes there, and thank you to you and our colleague there who's for managing to really show us the extent of the devastation. Really appreciate your time this afternoon.